So far, we've built all the requirements requested by the travel agency in what concerns the web application to be used by the agency's users. Now they're requesting the possibility to offer their customers a small application for smart devices that would benefit end users. The idea is to enable anyone the possibility to check from their own smart device all the cities that the agency offers trips to, as well as the main tourist attractions, among other things. Let's then go to GeneXus and review our transaction design. We have the category transaction with category ID as primary key. We also have the attraction transaction with the category ID attribute as foreign key. So, we should also remember what we saw in previous videos regarding the work with for web pattern, which we've applied to some transactions. So in the category transaction, let's select the patterns section. We should note that, besides the application of the pattern work with for web, GeneXus also offers the application of the same pattern but meant for smart devices. Let's select work with for smart devices, and now note the nodes of the tree on the left and what we have on the right. The list node appears under the node corresponding to the category level. If we click on it, we will see that it corresponds to a grid that contains the category name attribute. In this pattern, the node called list corresponds to the grid that will list the data of each category registry in the panel that will be generated. Therefore, the grid in the panel to be generated will show the list of names of the categories recorded. We already saw that, in this case, the layout for the list node is shown instead of the list of attributes to be included in the grid under the node, as it was in the case with the work with for web pattern. Let's now take a look at the detail node. We may associate the term detail with what we knew under the name of view in the work with for web pattern. That is, it referred to viewing the details of a specific record from the list. The detail node consists of two sections, general and attraction. As with the functionality implemented by the work with for web pattern, the general section will show the data associated with the category of tourist attractions selected, that is, the one for which we want to view the detail. If we go to the rules sector, we will see that it filters in the parm rule by category ID. And the attraction section will show all its attractions. We can see that there is a grid showing attributes attraction photo and attraction name. In the rules sector, we will see that it filters by category ID. So only attractions in that category will be listed. GeneXus adds one of these sections for each entity related to the category by means of a relation like this one, where n elements of the other entity correspond to one category. Since each category has n attractions, GeneXus added the attraction section with the grid. Here, GeneXus has decided to show the photo and the name of each attraction. This, of course, may be customized. We will apply this pattern to see in runtime what it generates and what it has to offer us. All we need to do is click on the Apply This Pattern on Save box, just like we did when we applied the work with for web pattern. Then we save. And we will see that, under the category transaction, we also have the work with devices category object. As opposed to when we apply the web pattern, in this case, we do not see a group of objects generated, but only one. It's because the objects necessary are implemented within that one object. And that's why we see all these sections for each node. We could do the same with the attraction transaction. Let's apply the pattern to it as well. We can see that the list shows, on a grid, the photo of the attraction and its name, as it was shown by the attraction section of category. But in this case, there's no filtering. We can see that the rules section is empty. So all tourist attractions in the database will be shown. And in this case, the detail node only has the general section. Why is that? because at least so far, the KB does not have it in any entities related to each attraction by means of subordination relation. That is to say, where an attraction has n related elements from the other entity so as to show those elements on screen. Note what this general section shows in the layout. These are the attributes of the structure of the attraction transaction. In fact, if we go to the rules sector, we will see that there is a parm rule where the filtering is done by attraction ID, and that's how the data on this attraction will be shown only, what has been received by parameter. This is created by GeneXus, and we don't have to do anything. After we save, the work with devices attraction object is created with the list and detail screens. Now, we will create a menu that will enable the user to invoke a list of attractions and the list of categories. To do this, we create a GeneXus object of the menu for Smart Devices type. We select New Object, and in the Smart Devices category, we select Menu for Smart Devices. Let's call it Travel Agency, because it will be the main object of the application in the device, that is, its point of entry. Here's where the options to be included in the menu are added. We right-click on the Items node and select Add, Action, because we want to add an action that is invoking the list of categories of tourist attractions. In this chart, we select the object we want to invoke. It's best if we invoke by object type. We select Work With for Smart Devices, and then choose Work With Devices category. We can see that, by default, this action was named Work With Devices category. If we look at the events, we can see that that's where the invocation to the list we want was placed. Now let's change the item description of this action to List of Categories. And this is the text that will be shown in runtime for the menu option. And here, we select an image for this option. If we have the image in our knowledge base already, we can select it. Otherwise, we import it from a file. Now we add another action, but this time, it'll be for the list of attractions. We change its description to List of Attractions, and we also change the image. To see what we've just implemented at runtime, we will define this menu as Startup Object. So, when we press F5, the application will be built from that object. It'll be compiled, and in the end, it'll be executed. By default, the application will be executed for Android. We will then go to our position on the Travel Agency menu, and there, we will right-click and select Set as Startup Object. Since this menu will be the application's main object, then it will have specific properties to set up, such as the application's name. We will call it Travel Agency. Now we press F5. Since we don't have an Android device connected to the computer where we're executing GeneXus, an Android emulator will open automatically to enable us to try it there. So, we can select any option. For instance, if we want to view the list of tourist attractions, we see all the attractions recorded in the database. And when we tap on one of them, we can see the details of the general information. and we can even edit that information in order to change it. For instance, we can change the category to famous landmarks. And we will see that, since it's a foreign key, it offers us to select the category from a list. Then we save. And we can see that in view mode, this window offers us the option enabling us to view information on the category precisely because it's a foreign key in the attraction. Here, in addition to the general information, we can also view the attractions that belong to this category. If we go back to the menu, we can select a list of categories where we see them listed by name. And if, for example, we select famous landmarks, we will see its general information just as we saw it when we decided to view the category of the Arc of Triumph. And we will also see its attractions. And if we go back to the list of tourist attractions, we will see that we can filter the information that we see by doing a search, for example, by name. Also, we can apply advanced searching, like filtering, for example, by category. Let's select famous landmarks. And of course, we may add a new tourist attraction from the list of attractions. Now let's go back to the main menu. Select the categories. And we will now suppose that we want to change the color of the category names on the list. Let's suppose, for instance, that we want that color to be red. If we now go back to GeneXus and note the properties in the field corresponding to the category name attribute in this list, we will see that it has the attribute title class associated to it. This class contains the design aspects that make the words appear as we showed in runtime. If we go to the attraction section and select the attraction name field in the grid, we will see that it also has this class associated to it. From here, we may change the color of the theme's class without the need to open it. We simply select the Class tab, and once we're there, we select Colors and Font. We can change the color. We would need to compile the application again in order to see the changes in runtime. However, this is merely an aesthetic change that could be viewed perfectly without the need to compile. So, to be able to inspect the app in runtime and introduce changes to it in GeneXus that may be viewed automatically on the device without the need for saving, we have the live editing functionality. We can activate live editing by going to this combo box to select the live editing option. A live editing window will open up to show the devices on which the application is being inspected. To start inspecting, we must compile the app, so let's press F5. We can see that the application is picked up again on this device. And the live editing window indicates which device is being inspected, in this case, the emulator. Additionally, in this other window, we can see exactly what the emulator is showing even when, in this first case, there seems to be nothing to be viewed. This is because the menu is not subject to inspections, but let's see what happens when, in the emulator, we tap on the list of categories. In the emulator, we can see the same that we can see in the Live Inspector window. The good thing here is that in this window, we can see the layers that make up the layout by simply clicking and dragging the mouse. And we can also see which controls are included in those layers, even with the possibility of introducing changes to them from here. For example, we can modify the attribute title class again. Let's now change the color and assign blue to it. When we do this, we will see that the change took place automatically in runtime without any saving. Let's now tap on famous landmarks to see its attractions. Since the class of attraction name was the same, we will also see the blue color. Now we want to insert a column between the photo and the name of the attraction to leave a space in between. So, we go to the Work With Devices category, and then to the Layout of the Attraction section. After we're positioned on any one of the controls in the grid, we press on this little icon. This is how we achieve our position in the grid's table, and from there, we see the column style property. It has two values that correspond to the two columns. We will now add a column by right-clicking on any of the grid's controls, for example, on the photo. And then we select Insert Column After. So the column is now inserted. Now we see the properties. And what will we see at runtime now? We see the inserted column between the photo and the name of the attraction. If we now go back to the column style property and click here, we can see these values in a more user-friendly dialog. Dips are an abstraction of a pixel. They're units typical of these devices. We can set up the values of the columns with fixed values in dips or as a percentage of the full width. Now we will modify the values so that the second column occupies 10 dips. With the first one occupying 30% of the remaining width, and then the last one occupying 70% of it. Now we see it, and if we now save, all these changes will actually become effective the next time that we compile the application. Suppose that now we want to modify the way in which we view the information relative to the tourist attractions in one category. Instead of viewing them as a standard list, we want to view them as dots on a map. To that end, the attraction transaction must necessarily include, among its attributes, an attribute of the data type of the geolocation domain, which is a special domain that records data on the latitude and longitude of geographical points in order for them to be shown on a map. Before the beginning of this video, we had already added that attribute to the transaction as we reorganized and loaded the latitude and longitude corresponding to the location of each tourist attraction. Note that, when we view the general information about an attraction, such as the Eiffel Tower, on the device, that information appears in the attribute. And if we tap here, the attraction appears as a dot on the map. Now we want the attractions in the category to be seen as an image gallery. So we go to the grid's properties and select the property called Control Type. And there, we select SD Image Gallery. We will see that a series of properties are activated. We must necessarily enter a value in the property called Data Attribute. Here, we must indicate the attribute of the extended table of the grid of the image type, which will be considered for generating the image gallery. We select Attraction Photo, and now we press F5. We have to compile the application again because the information regarding that attribute was not in memory. We will have to take it from the database, so live editing will not be useful in this case. Once again, we select a list of categories. And from there, we select the monument category. we go to its attractions, and we see them as an image gallery. If we select one of them, we will see all its information. We have thus developed a small module for smart devices meant to offer end users an additional option to access the information that the travel agency has available. We have a full course on the development of mobile apps with GeneXus. You may access all the related videos in our training site.